Hi everyone, welcome to iWizard. So, exciting news, as of last night, 11 p.m., Jordan submitted his final grades. Yay! So he's officially on summer break. So what are we doing today?
So today we are doing our summer TBR. So we're going to go through the books that we plan to read over the summer. We're both teachers, so we both have the summer off, which is awesome. And that's what we're doing.
The most wonderful time of the year.
The most wonderful time of the year.
All right, stay tuned, everyone.
Stay tuned. Welcome back, Jordan and Nikki here. So I want to start by sharing our plans for the summer. Nikki and I, as I said, are both teachers. We have the next 2 full months to basically live the dream. So we're going to be putting the finishing touches on the fantasy novel that we're writing. Maybe at some point we could share a chapter of that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that could be fun.
We're going to be reading books. We're going to be making awesome content for you guys. So let's get into this TBR without any further delay, starting with the last week of June.
One further delay. I made a spreadsheet for our summer TBR since there's a lot on there, and there's the link down below to the Google Sheets, so if we make any changes, you can follow along.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's get into the last week of June.
I am going to be reading book 7 of The Expanse, which is Persepolis Rising. I'm like halfway through it now, and there's a pretty big time jump between Persepolis Rising and Babylon's Ashes. It's like a 30-year jump, which I really wasn't expecting. So it's a change for sure. And already there's been mention of these alien seed pods on one of the planets through the ring gates, Oberon. And Oberon is the novella that comes after it. So I'm gonna read that novella just after Persepolis Rising because I am so excited. I love the alien stuff in these books. And so then July, I plan on completely wrapping up The Expanse. I'll have book 8, Tiamat's Wrath, book 9, which is Leviathan Falls, and also The Sins of Our Fathers. So I'm planning on doing a palette cleanser or 2 between each one of those, but by the end of July, I'm planning on just being done with my journey. I'll do some special videos on The Expanse. So if there's anything particular you all want to see, let me know and I'll put it together. I know I'm already going to be doing a comparison between books 1 to 6 of The Expanse and the first 6 seasons of the TV series. I'll probably do a character ranking, possibly with Jordan and cocktails, which could be fun. And then to wrap up June, I'm going to start reading the Buffy comics. And because Jordan and I rewatched Buffy the Vampire Slayer recently in celebration of its 25th anniversary.
Check out those videos.
Yes. Oh my God. So much love and time went into those videos. You have no idea. I devoted most of my spring break to putting together those videos, taking clips.
Our 2 Buffy videos are the best pieces. They are the best pieces of content I think we've ever produced.
So please check them out. Moving forward from there, I'm going to be reviewing season 8 of the Buffy comics at the end of June, season 9 at the end of July, season 10 at the end of August. Okay, so I plan on doing 1 season per month.
So in June, I am doing, first up for me is books 1 and 2 of the Book of the New Sun. This is Gene Wolfe's Dying Earth masterpiece. The book takes place millions of years in the future after the sun has cooled and dimmed, and it's about this disgraced torturer named Severian and his whole journey, his hard-fought rise to power. They call this science fantasy, and speaking of, on June 30th, I'll be having a conversation with Mr. Science Fantasy himself, the author of the Sun Eater series, Christopher Racchio. So we're going to be talking about book 1, The Shadow of the Torturer, and we're going to be talking about book 2, to Claw of the Conciliator. So I'm looking forward to that. Neil Gaiman calls Book of the New Sun the best sci-fi novel of the last century. Ursula Le Guin calls Gene Wolfe our Melville, and the New Yorker once called Gene Wolfe in an article sci-fi's difficult genius. So I'm going to have Christopher Rocchio helping me out with that, and it should be a really fun, interesting, dynamic discussion.
It's always fun to have Christopher on.
Christopher's great, man. So check out his Sun Eater series, and that will be the rest of June for me because that book is dense. So we'll see if I can handle it. All right, so let's move to July now, and I've decided to bump Elric up to the beginning of July because I'm just so fascinated with this series. So this is the new wave author Michael Moorcock, and it's his best-known series. And the series tells of the adventures of Elric, obviously, the last king of Melniboné, and his sentient vampiric sword, Stormbringer. So this is kind of that classic pulpy sword and sorcery stuff, kind of with a new twist. So I guess Elric is some kind of Byronic anti-hero whose mind is sharper than his body, so that's a bit of a twist for a warrior. He has to take drugs to sustain himself. I'm told this is Moorcock's subversion of Tolkien. The New Yorker once called Michael Moorcock a rock and roll anti-Tolkien, which, look, guys, I love Tolkien. That is never going to change. He will always be my favorite fantasy writer. I will always see The Lord of the Rings as being the ultimate foundational ur-text of fantasy literature. I know stuff came before that, but I still think of it as a kind of ur-text. So sometimes I do kind of think that Michael Moorcock sounds like a little brat for trying to subvert good old Papa Tolkien, but I am told over and over again that this is a series that I would love, and so I'm going to give it a go, especially because Samuel Rukin, Christopher Rocchio's audiobook narrator, has now done an audiobook version. Finally, we've all been waiting for that, and so it has arrived, as well as some really nice hardcover copies you can see behind me of Elric. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's our summer reading stack behind us. They're pretty big stacks.
Yeah,
that's for sure. We have our work cut out for us. So for me, kicking off July, I'm going to continue on with the Coldfire trilogy. So Jordan and I just reviewed book 1 together, which was Black Sun Rising. And then I'm going to start off with book 2, which is When True Night Falls. Move on to book 3 right after that because I want to be nice to myself and allow myself to do what I really want to do, and that's binge the trilogy. And so I'll read Crown of Shadows after that. And then there is a prequel novella that came out, I believe, last year called Dominion. And it tells the story of Gerald Tarrant, who has now evolved like beyond vampire, but back in his vampy days, his journey north to the forest and what happened there. And so I'm really excited to read that novella as well.
That should be great.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. I love the magic in the series and the writing. And the first book was fantastic, and I've heard that it just keeps getting better and better and better. So I am so pumped.
Next up for me is The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. So this is one that I know I've been saying that I'm going to read for a really long time. So I feel bad for breaking my word to you, but for some reason I just kept putting that book off, and I'm sorry about that. Part of the reason is I think that I've seen the movie before from the 80s, and also I have this really epic kind of interesting video comparing the movie to the book. So the task of reviewing Neverending Story and doing that comparison is a little daunting for me, but I'm really looking forward to it. So I promise I will officially do.
Well, and you're supposed to pick up your guitar for that video too.
Yeah, I was gonna play the
you are going to
the main riff of the song as an intro. So look forward to that.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Next up, and this is still in July, we have Domesticating Dragons by Dan Cobalt. This is a book that Bain originally sent me, and I'd never heard of it, to be honest with you, but it's been described as Build-A-Bear Workshop meets Jurassic Park. And so it does seem to have a lot in common with Jurassic Park. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but Jurassic Park is easily one of my favorite sci-fi novels ever. So this book is apparently about a recent graduate of some genetic engineering program who goes off to work for this company that is trying to produce custom-made dragons that you could have as your family pet. But things don't go as planned. So that definitely has echoes of InGen from Jurassic Park. I guess the author is actually a legitimate genetics researcher, so I'm wondering if this series is going to have that kind of science thriller, Michael Crichton kind of vibe and energy. So we'll see, and I'm excited to do that because I think sometimes on this channel we have to do little known books that can turn people on to something that they didn't know about before.
And then after that in July, I'm going to be starting a new series.
Yes.
And so part of my goal this summer is to do a little bit of research as a writer, since Jordan and I are revising our fantasy novel that we've been working on for the past 3 summers. This is summer number 4 now. And so I'm going to read The Blade itself, book number 1 of the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. And I've heard that his prose style is kind of similar to George R.R. Martin, and his character work is super, super awesome. So I'm mostly reading it to see how he does this phenomenal character work. And from what I've heard, I'll probably need to move on to They Are Hanged, which is book 2, but I'm gonna I'm probably gonna be hooked.
You're gonna become addicted to it.
And I remember watching the interview with Joe Abercrombie on Mike's book reviews, and I thought he seems like a fun guy.
He does.
I was very entertained during that interview, so I have a feeling I'm gonna like his work.
It's a good-natured fellow.
Yes.
Next up for me is A Game of Thrones. This is the first book of the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. So I've been saying for a long time that George R.R. Martin is my favorite living fantasy author. I've repeated that on this channel, and that Song of Ice and Fire is my favorite contemporary fantasy series. So I figured it's time to review these books and really give them the thorough treatment that they deserve, starting with the book that started it all, so I'm really excited to review Game of Thrones on this channel. And I figured reviewing these books would give me a chance to talk about the television show as well, and to talk about those new shows that are coming up on HBO, and just kind of really,
I'm so excited for
really
those.
get into the lore and the history of the series. So that will be July as well.
Yeah, I'll intersperse an Expanse review somewhere in there, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep going with the series, and I'm going to then move on to A Clash of Kings. I loved A Clash of Kings. You've got the turmoil, you've got the whole civil war going on with the Seven Kingdoms, with Joffrey and Robert's brothers and Robb Stark and the Greyjoys. So the action really heats up in the second book. You've got the overarching plot with the Night's Watch searching for the wildlings and that sort of thing. You've got the background with Daenerys Targaryen trying to plan out her long game to conquer the Seven Kingdoms.
And this will be your second time reading through.
At least. So
yeah.
I don't want to give any more spoilers, but I'm excited to get into Song of Ice and Fire with you.
And I'll wrap up the month with Buffy season 9 comics. So I'm so excited to return to the Buffy comics because I started reading them, and what happened is I got like midway through season 10, and I have those beautiful library editions, and I was missing volume 2. It took me so long to get my hands on volume 2 that then at that point I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm done for now. I had other stuff going on, so I'm looking forward to sharing those reviews with you. And then at the start of August, Jordan and I will be reading another book together. What are we reading?
The Princess Bride.
So The Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've seen it, I'm not even lying, probably like 50 times. Not an exaggeration.
I believe it. With your aunt, right?
My great aunt. Yeah. So we'll be doing that review together. We're going to watch the movie again.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about the book, so this should be really exciting for me. I've seen the movie probably 3 or 4 times with NIKKI, and, I know nothing about the book. But I do think it's interesting that there's this whole meta element of, the book's by William Goldman, but there's S. Morgenstern, and that's the book that Fred Savage in the movie is reading. And so I'm interested to see what Goldman actually does with that. So next up in August is going to be A Storm of Swords. This is Song of Ice and Fire, book number 3 by George R.R. Martin. So this book is, in my opinion, the best modern fantasy novel, at least the best fantasy novel so far that has been written in the 21st century. I believe he published it in 2000, but still nothing has come along, I think, that tops that. I don't want to give you a full plot summary because, to be honest, that's going to start spoiling some stuff that happens in the first 2 books. And surprising as this is, there are still quite a few people who haven't read these books and who haven't watched the show, although the show is extremely popular. So that is an amazing book.
Yeah, with those books, for me, it was hard to watch the show and read the books at the same time because that's what I was doing. And I was like, okay, it's just too much Song of Ice and Fire, like too much. Which I know there's no too much Song of Ice and Fire for you,
that's right.
But there was a little too much for me. Okay, so moving on to more of my writing inspiration, I am going to be reading Kushiel's Dart, which is book 1 of Kushiel's Legacy. And what I heard is really well done in Kushiel's Dart is the court politics. And while there's no court politics in our books, there is some politicking a little bit. And so I think it'd be good for me to see how that's done well there.
I think there's a lot of politicking in our book.
Yeah, but not court politics.
That's true. It's very much different.
Yeah. I've been wanting to read Kushiel's Dart for a while now, so.
Jacqueline Carey
Yes.
is the author. Okay, so another book for me in August is going to be Pandora's Star. And so this is the first book in the Commonwealth saga by Peter F. Hamilton. This is a book that takes place a few hundred years in the future. Humanity has colonized over 400 planets. They're all interlinked by these wormholes. And so for the first time in humankind's history, there's peace. At the heart of this story is a mystery. There's fascinating politics. There's a whole thing with a vanishing star, ideological battles, great world building. It's an excellent book. I read it a couple of summers ago, but the reason I want to get back into it is there are a bunch of books in the whole Commonwealth universe, and I want to explore those. And I really want to read Pandora's Star again and review it for you in a kind of systematic way. I think I read that entire book when I read like the first third of it when I was on a really long walk in Amherst, Massachusetts. And so I definitely remember reading it that summer and just thinking, this is a series I want to return to one day. Peter F. Hamilton is a little bit like Alastair Reynolds, a little still hard sci-fi, epic space opera, detailed world building, but a little softer and a little more loose than something like Alastair Reynolds, which can be very difficult. So really looking forward to that.
And next up on my August TBR has been on my TBR for like years. And this is Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. And I love Neil Gaiman. I've read a bunch of his books, and Neverwhere is one of those books where I thought, okay, this is just going to be perfect for me. I just never got around to reading it because it's described as a dark contemporary Alice in Wonderland. And I love Alice in Wonderland so much. And when Jordan and I first started dating like 14 years ago, we were in a semi-long distance relationship. We lived like 2 hours apart. We met at a party and hit it off. But for our first Christmas together, he got me a Netflix DVD subscription. And so he'd send me like one movie at a time that he picked out. And so he started out with just sending me a bunch of Alice in Wonderland type movies. And there's one of those movies that like just like wrecked me forever.
Don't tell them about it.
Tideland. Oh my God. Like, Don't do it to yourself. It's really, really like messed up. It's dark. It's very dark.
It's about as dark as it gets.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, hon.
Yeah, really. But I made him rewatch it with me just to give it back. So I've seen it twice now, which is so strange to say. Anyway. So Neverwhere is like an urban fantasy where there's this whole kind of Wonderland underground, right? So I'm so excited for that. And I remember my dad read Neverwhere. My dad was huge into reading sci-fi and fantasy, loved Star Wars, loved like medieval stuff, Arthurian legend. And I know he just devoured Neverwhere. So I'm really, really excited to read that.
God, if your dad could have started a book too, my goodness, that guy has read more fantasy and sci-fi.
He would read like a book in a day.
Yeah.
He would fly through them. And he would know like every single detail in them. Just yeah. And speaking of Arthurian legend.
Yeah, one of my last books for August is going to be Once and Future King by T.H. White. And so Once and Future King tells the story of King Arthur's life. from his childhood to his coronation, the creation of the Round Table, the search for the Holy Grail. So this is probably the most celebrated modern retelling of the Arthurian legends out there. It's based on Thomas Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur, and was written by a very kind of smart, studious, learned man in T.H. White. So looking forward to finally getting to that, because everyone else has read this book.
And I am so jealous. I wanted to read that with you, but there's so many books out there, and we'd like to cover more.
Yeah, we can't read everything together. So,
but I had so much fun reading Black Sun Rising with you.
Yeah, that was great. It was really great.
All right, so since I'm thinking I'll be finished up with The Expanse in July, I'm going to insert a little more sci-fi into my August. So I'll be reading one of the books that Bane sent us, and that is The Wellstone by Will McCarthy. And I thought the description on the back was really succinct and kind of tells me why I might be interested in it. Humanity has conquered the solar system, and death itself has been vanquished. Wellstone, programmable matter, ensures that no one need ever age past adulthood. But for the children of immortal parents, life remains a constant state of arrested development, and a prince shall remain a prince forever, never inheriting the throne. So what is a royal minor to do? Go to the well. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it sounds fun.
Sounds interesting. Really does. All right, so for me, last up in August is going to be Down Below Station, book 1 of the Company Wars series by C.J. Cherryh. This is a blockbuster space opera of the rebellion between Earth and its far-flung colonies, which turns into an interstellar war. It's really about what happens when you expand out into space, and the people who leave and colonize other planets don't really want to be part of the political body of Earth anymore. And so I taught this book this year in my fantasy and sci-fi class, and the students really enjoyed it. It was a little bit too dense for them, but once we unpacked it as a class, they really started to like it. I was absolutely positively blown away by this book, and so basically I just want to talk more about it.
I remember you being super amped about it.
Just a brilliant work of hard science fiction. Very much reminds me of The Expanse, but way more dense, and I think of a kind of higher literary caliber, but really excited to review that and get into that this summer.
And I'll wrap up August with another Buffy, so that'll be season 11 at that point.
Awesome.
Right? No, season 10.
Season 10. Yep. Great. So moving into September. Yes, it still is summer. I will have started school back up, but I'll have all of that well-rested summer energy. And I'm going to review The Age of Wonder, How the Romantic Generation Discovered the Beauty and Terror of Science by Richard Holmes. The only reason I'm reviewing this is because this is a summer reading book that my AP language students, so 2 birds with 1 stone there. The book is about the second scientific revolution and how back in the late 18th and early 19th centuries during the Romantic period, science and art and the humanities, they weren't separated like they are now. And so there are all these stories about the Romantic poets, about Captain Cook's voyages, about the earliest balloon flights, about William Herschel and his telescopes, about Coleridge and Keats and Shelley and Mungo Park's explorations of Africa and Humphrey Davy and all of this stuff. So it's just this excited The Age of Wonder. It's about the wonder and awe of science and how really we shouldn't be separating science from poetry and art. We should be fusing them, and we should be making. I
kind of want to read this with you.
Oh God, would you love that book? You really would.
I feel like I really
would. You would absolutely, positively love it. I've read it before. It is beyond good. It is beyond good. So I'm really excited to share that knowledge with you this summer.
And so for September, well, for all of fall, my plan is to have it be the season of the vampire for me, where I'm just going to devote my entire outside of work self to reading vampire stuff. And so I'm going to start that in September, even though I've been kind of doing vampy stuff all summer. But I'm going to kick it off with Polidori's Vampire, which is a short story. And then I will get into Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I am starting at the origins here, the 19th century origins of how we see the modern vampire.
I believe Polidori was there on that fateful night.
Oh, he was. And I talk about it a little bit
in
my Stress of Her Regard review.
There it is.
Yes.
So he did that on basically a dare by Byron, which is the same
They
dare
were all trying to write ghost stories.
elicited.
Yeah, and that's the same dare that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein.
For. Yeah, absolutely. Closing this out, I'm going to do book number 4 of Song of Ice and Fire, A Feast for Crows, obviously by George R. R. Martin. But I'll just, there's not much else I can say about this without spoiling it. I'll just say what I think Martin does well and why I really love his books. He really gives readers a full cast of nuanced characters, compelling, believable characters who are fleshed out, multidimensional. He situates them in this fantasy world that feels real and is really detailed with interesting politics. And he gives those characters such rich inner lives and nuanced feelings and authentic personalities. None of these characters in Song of Ice and Fire are entirely bad. Maybe Ramsay Bolton and possibly Joffrey. So let's amend that. Most of these characters are not entirely bad or good. Some of them have warm hearts, but they're just selfish. Some of them are greedy, but they have someone that they truly love, and that endears them to you. Some of them are just doing what they think is right, and that's maybe not what you or I would think is right, but they all have a cogent, believable story and believable motivations. And you take all that I just said about the characters and the world building and the writing, and then you add on a really, really gripping plot that really goes somewhere. Add on Machiavellian politics and all of that stuff. I have said this once before. I forget who I said this to. But George R. R. Martin, if you covered up every single chapter and you just, whited out the names or whatever and got rid of the names, you would know which chapter, because in Song of Ice and Fire, each chapter follows a different character. You would know like a half a sentence into that chapter which character that chapter was about, because each character has their own distinct rhythm and feel and internal qualia, and it's just such a brilliant series that I don't think has been topped in contemporary times. So excited to work through Song of Ice and Fire with you.
And please read with us this summer. And to do that, please remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell. Keep in mind, I have my Google Sheets linked below because I love spreadsheets. The engineer and me just won't ever let them go.
Check us out on Goodreads. Tip your starving booktubers on Patreon. That would help us out. And until next time.
Bye.